NASCAR, what are some of the most valuable lessons that you had to learn early?
NASCAR is a closely knit industry. Trying not to make enemies that you don't even know or could possibly be enemies. Trying to really stay true to your word. Sometimes, things with sponsors don't work out. But I would say my biggest thing is just staying patient, really trusting in my faith in God that, he brought us to this opportunity and he's going to see us through it. And just, really just being patient and respecting the process, because it is a process. As much as I would love to get back out there and get another 15th finish, it takes an entire team, and it takes a good team. And putting that together can sometimes be challenging, depending on what's available at the time that you're ready to move. Sponsors that keep their word and execute are fun. You take a lot on the chin being an owner, even, really things that are not in your control. So I've had to, swallow my pride a couple of times, take a couple of, shots at the chin, but I enjoy the sport. I'm looking forward to the opportunity, and I'm just thankful that I have this opportunity and that I can pay it forward to somebody else that wants to come into the sport.
Definitely. And now with the drivers, do you get a chance to pick the drivers, or do you have to recruit the drivers? How does this thing work with the drivers? Because I know that I think one of the drivers that you had was actually a somewhat known driver, and I can't think of their name or anything. But do y'all actually just recruit the drivers, or do they come after y'all, or how does this whole thing work between the drivers and the owners?
Well, I have drivers that have reached out to me, and I have drivers that we have been introduced to that are looking for a seat. It really depends. It really depends on the relationship. Scott Stenzel was the driver that ran my Daytona debut, and Scott did an amazing job. He came in 15th. I had partnered with Cop Motorsport for that race, and we had a phenomenal finish, for first time out the gate. It was amazing, 15th, and all I ever prayed for was to be competitive. So we were very happy with that. But we have, now that we're becoming more seasoned and more people are aware of us and they know that there is an opportunity with the team, I've had some phenomenal bigger name drivers that were available to us, and I was like, man, I was absolutely speechless. So we're putting together an amazing program, amazing team rather. And I can't wait for everybody to see, what we've been up to. We've been a little quiet for, I would say, the past 9 months for good reason.
And we got another caller. I'm going to bring them in shortly. But what advice would you give to people that might be interested in getting involved in driving or just being an owner and everything? You talked about how difficult it is, and, of course, we all don't have that kind of capital. But for those that do have that kind of capital or that might be interested, what kind of advice would you give to folks that might be interested in creating a team or might want to even try to get involved with your team?
I would tell them, outside of my team, what I would love to do is to be like that welcoming party, tell them, listen, call me. I know who the tire guys are. I know who this is. I know who that is, and be able to point them in the right direction, kind of save them some of the headaches that I went through when I was first starting. But I would love to be a mentor. I mean, somebody mentored me. Somebody took me under their wing. So I would love to be that resource to a new owner that wants to come into the sport, because I believe the sport is amazing and phenomenal. And, I tell people all the time, I'm like, you will be hooked. After your very first race, you will be hooked. I guarantee it. My dad's actually in a nursing home, and the gentleman in the bed across from him is a NASCAR fan, and he's African American. And that's the one thing that he remembers every weekend is to make sure. So I brought him in a NASCAR schedule, and he was so elated, and I was like, wow, just to see him smile, but he's always watching the races, truck races, Xfinity, Cup Series, everything. He loves the sport.
Now, what's the one, now you're doing NASCAR, but what's the one competition that you really are hoping to do that you haven't done? Because I know NASCAR is full of all these different kinds of races. Of course, there's the main races that everybody knows, but then there's also, like you just mentioned, the truck races, and then there's even some of these, for lack of a better term, I call them the demolition kind of races. But what's kind of the one sport that you want to get involved in?
Of course, I want to go up the line. I want to progress. I want my team to progress up the cup. Trucks is a great start. It is a great start in nationals, and Xfinity definitely getting into cars is an even bigger step. I think that's a major push. Definitely something that we need to look into here at E2 Northeast. But of course, we always aspire to get into Cup Series, and run with the bigger boys.
Yeah, my one-time deal, my mom actually almost ran against one of the bigger boys because, unfortunately, for whatever reasons, a lot of times one of the stereotypes about NASCAR is that it's a very conservative sport, meaning that a lot of the people are part of that conservative side of the spectrum of politics. And I know that that's not necessarily the truth because I'm sure that, like the rest of society, it probably covers the wide range. But the stereotype is usually that they're very staunch conservatives and things of that nature. And I remember years ago, it might have been almost 10 to 15 years ago, my mom actually ran for Secretary of State in the state of North Carolina, and she forced a runoff with the woman that won, who is still our current Secretary of State. Trying to remember Elaine's last name. I believe it's Elaine Marshall. But if she had won that race, she would have been going up against Richard Petty. So, like I said, Elaine went up against Richard and won against Richard, but Mom was almost having the privilege of going up in a political race against one of the legends of NASCAR, none other than Richard Petty. But I think Mom would have won that race. I think Mom would have run that race. But that's just that's my personal son bias, even at the age of 50-something.
I love it.
But when people find out that you're in NASCAR, do they have certain stereotypes about NASCAR? Do they feel that it's all, for lack of a better term, conservative white guys?
Oh yeah, they do. The biggest is the concern of racism, equality, all those things. And I honestly, I have to defend NASCAR, the corporation, that I have not experienced that. Dealing with vendors and things of that nature, yes. It's definitely different, like I said, from being from the north, where things are hidden. And in the South, it's definitely right there, in your face. But NASCAR as a corporation, they have been nothing but helpful to me, as much as they can be, So
they've been very encouraging. And have you reached out to other corporations to get involved with NASCAR? Some of like our own corporations, to see if you're not having luck with the big chains. And as for that's all your cars, you had quite a few corporate names and everything, but I was wondering if you reached out to like some of our businesses, like whether you reached out to like, say, an Ebony or Johnson Products, or even some of the smaller ones, to see about them teaming up with you.
I have reached out to other corporations within our community, and unfortunately NASCAR has the stigmatism of being, a race is about $1 million, which is not true. And, when you give them a fair price, my problem has been I've reached out to them at the wrong time. So I can't reach out to them in fourth quarter and expect any support, or third quarter. I have to be, before the 8 ball.
Right.
So that's where my thing is, timing. And I've hired a couple of companies that did not bring anything to fruition. And I really had to establish myself first in the public eye that we are there, because a lot of people still don't know that we exist. So there's still a lot of room for growth, but we've been getting a lot of support from corporate America, and trying to see, when exactly we can put a relationship together, put a partnership together, and how, for me, it's how not only the support on the track, but the work off the track, because what happens off the track is just as important. And I'm a humanitarian, so I like to see that the corporations that we're partnering with have some type of community outreach program. That's very important to me. And sometimes my lawyers get mad at me because they're like, no, just let them help you with their races. Don't worry about the rest. But in my good conscience, I can't. I need them to, give something back to the communities that have made them very wealthy corporations.
Oh, yeah, definitely. And that's one of the things that I've learned, and I want to get Dean to bring in our other guests and everything, and definitely want you to stay on the line. But one of the things I've learned is I've done a lot of festivals in the area, whether it's something here in Durham, like Art is Cool, which is a relatively new festival or whether it's something that's been here forever, like the Bull Durham Blues Festival. And a lot of times, unfortunately, a lot of our major corporations, they want to see, as they call it, they want to see how many eyeballs are going to be actually watching their event. So a lot of times, even though there might be tens or hundreds of thousands of people at these festivals, or maybe even close to 1 million, they don't necessarily want to sponsor because it's one time and they don't feel that they're getting a return for their money based on what they're doing. So I know that definitely here in their area, a lot of corporate people have dropped off and everything.
Yes, very much so. So definitely, trying to almost recreate the wheel, but let them know, like, we are willing to come out and do these in-stores. We are willing to be a community-based team so that our community that we're representing, and we want to be that relatable image coming into the sport to usher in those new demographics, that we're out in the community where they can see us and touch us and talk to us and, be engaging to them. And I think some of the drivers within the industry now have gotten away from that. They've become superstars and they've forgotten about the smaller people that have gotten them to where they are, that were supportive in them, that got their numbers where they are, why they're making these huge paychecks. So we always want to be accessible to our communities.
Oh, I would definitely agree with that. I think that that's one of the issues even with the radio because, like I said, I do this podcast, but I've also done nonprofit radio. My folks had a radio station in Warren County, and I've done radio at Central, and I've got friends that do commercial radio. And one of the things that we talk about is the fact that back in the day, you used to see radio people, and I imagine even in the big city of New York, they would be out at events all the time. And there are still some that do that, but they don't do it like they used to do it. So that's one of my complaints about just media in general is that we have these people that used to be, that was part of their job, whether they were celebrities or whether they were musicians, whether they were sports athletes or whether they were radio personalities. They would definitely get out into the community, but now we've got to this kind of mentality where people just don't necessarily give back to the community the way they should. So I'm glad to see that you're doing this and everything. Dean, do we have somebody else on the line?
Yeah, they've been patiently waiting to get in. I got Scott from Scottsdale, Arizona. Welcome to Straight Talk with Dean and Mark.
Hey, hello, Melissa. How are you doing?
Hi, my love. How are you?
I am good, thank you. I just wanted to call in and say I'm proud of you and listening and hope all is well.
Thank you, Scott. I love you.
I love you too.
now, Scott, I do want you to call in, and I do want you to call in at some other point, and we'll have a longer conversation about your business and everything. But you met Melissa through your company, and we talked about this when you called in after you had talked to Dean and everything, and that's that you have I believe it's your own jet company and everything, Advent Jet. So if you just want to tell our folks just a little bit, and like I said, we'll definitely call you back and have you on an extended show to talk more about it. But just if you give a little bit of people a little history as to what that's all about and how you met Melissa.
Sure. Melissa and I go back a couple of years, and we've actually partnered up, and we're going to do some events together for some VIP experiences. Which I'm very proud of to be part of the Nascar. And coming from a single mom, I support very powerful women that are obviously entrepreneurs. So with that being said, one of the things that I strive on with Advent Jets is no membership, no fees. You can fly on demand anywhere in the world, anytime. Why pay a membership if we're transparent and to give you a good experience? Why should your business or family have to pay a membership to fly?
Yeah, it sounds like a wonderful thing, and I'm going to have to find a way. I've been looking at your jets. They look very fancy and things of that nature, so I'm going to have to find out if what I'm seeing is actually as stylish as what it looks like from what the reaction I'm getting from Melissa. I think it must be a very joyous experience, so I don't know where I'm going to come up with that kind of money, but I'm going to have to find some of that kind of money so I can jump on one of those planes and maybe bring Dean with me and his wife.
We'll make it happen. So I appreciate your time. And, Melissa, it's great to talk to you again and reach out anytime. You know how to reach me.
Of course I do.
All right. You guys have a blessed day.
Thanks a lot. Appreciate you calling in, Scott. And who else we got on the line?
As if for right now, we'll probably get more in a second. But you know what? Y'all hold on 1 second. Give me 1 minute, all right?
All right.
The old Renaissance is the new Renaissance, standing on tradition while embracing the spirit of distinction. This is the Harlem Brewing Company. Uniquely crafted beer brewed to deliver a taste, a sound,